I joined 7 years ago because MMACC was led by a woman priest. And I believe, as do my daughters, that the full equality of women and men in the church is a goal. I'm now a member because we are MMACC, a Catholic community. By definition, we are inclusive, welcoming to all, and committed to helping not only our members, but other persons in the San Diego community and in the world in which we live.
My son came out when he was 14. He knew he was gay, I knew he was gay, it didn't change anything about anything because this is who my son was and I adore my son, love my son. And he was in the middle of confirmation classes. And he was starting to hear the turn or burn speeches. What turn or burn means, turn away from your natural being. Turn away from any kind of inclination that does not fit the one man, one woman perspective, or burn in hell. Turn away or burn in hell. And 10 years ago, my son came home and he started telling me these stories. And I said, my dear, this is not the God that I have raised you to know. This is not the God that I will support or the faith that I will support in continuing to have you be in this environment. The first day that I walked into Mass, some of you may have heard this story, I heard Nancy talking about women in the church and the strength and the inclusivity and bringing women in and the importance of women in the Catholic faith. And I stepped back and I said, I'm not in Kansas anymore. I'm not in Kansas anymore and I'm home. I'm home.
About 15 years ago, I have to say I was a disillusioned Catholic. Disillusioned because of the hierarchy, their accumulation of wealth, their lifestyle, the relegation of women and others to a kind of second-class status in the church. And the last straw, to me anyways, was the child abuse scandal and subsequent cover-up. I really enjoy the homilies of Jane, where is she, or Jane, and Nancy. They separate fact from myth in the church. They give us old teachings and apply old teachings to our present day. And you know what? They do it with a sense of humor and a smile, and I really like that. It is important to me that one of the core values of our community is inclusiveness. Inclusiveness in word, but also more importantly in deed. And when I reflect upon it, isn't that the example Christ set for us 2,000 years ago? And another important thing to me is social justice. That's part of our mission statement. And how can we be spiritual in mind when we do not embrace social justice on earth in our own lives? And that's really why I'm here, and I consider myself fortunate.
I met a gay priest who invited me to worship at his parish, and I was happy to have found that niche. I had hoped that being there signaled an acceptance of the presence of LGBT people, if not an affirmation of our lives. But eventually the hammer fell, and that priest was gone, exiled to a distant parish, and ordered to avoid these kinds of things. And it was made clear to all of us that we were no longer welcome in this parish. So, like I've heard a number of you say, I became a roaming Catholic. I would wander from this parish to that parish, from the Mission to the Immaculata to Immaculate Conception, never staying long enough to have anyone know me, because I feared what they would do if they did. I simply could not be known. My journey brought me here after several detours to other places 3 years ago. And this is the place where I am known. This congregation rejects the horrifying idea that one would go to a faith community and deliberately try to not be known and not be whole. So this is a place also where I did not have to exile my brain, where women are leaders, and a theology of inclusion actually lives. Here, I look forward to being a part of the liturgy and of the people here. And I am so grateful to have Mary Magdalene Apostle Catholic community.
And so now I'm left at a place at 60, almost 64, where my faith is often in doubt, what I believe, but I still have a sense at a deepest level when I'm still, which is rare, but when I am, that God is still real. And what I experience when I come to MMACC is that experience of God again, the seeing it in action. Seeing people care for each other, kindness towards each other, and love for each other, which strengthens the part of me that believes deeply. And the fact that we all come from Catholic roots and that we can transform that is really, really powerful for me. I love music. It moves my spirit before my brain starts working. And that's very profound. This is one of the few Catholic places where people actually sing out. The Protestants don't just have the corner on that market. So that's really nice to see here.
For me, I found a spiritual home in MMACC because we're meeting a deep hunger in the world. For women's ordination, yes. For me, very centrally, the radical inclusivity of Jesus practiced here. I feel more at home, more hugged, and more accepted than I ever have. And I'm really grateful to this community for helping me to feel that.
For me, consciousness and creativity are God's energy alive in the universe, embodied in our faith in the cosmic Christ. This is the MMACC theology that I've experienced. It has enabled me to have intellectual integrity and emotional satisfaction in my spiritual life. It has affirmed that I have value as God's creation.
Well, I went to Catholic grade school and high school, and kind of felt a little bit like Catholicism was chosen for me. My parents had said, you know, you're going to be baptized, you're going to do communion, you're going to the whole thing, and it really actually, it was okay. I went along with it, but it wasn't really like my choice so much. Then in 1995, I remember my mom saying how disgruntled she was actually with Pope John Paul because he had proclaimed an infallible statement that women could not be priests. And I was like, oh my gosh, how can I be a part of this church? My mom has been on the liturgy committee. My mom led the liturgy committee. I was an altar server all growing up. So I was just like, I can't believe that this church would be so, would make such a statement, because my mom explained to me that with an infallible statement, that means it can't be changed because that's the word of God. So I actually then was like, when I went to college, I said, I'm not sure that Catholicism is for me. I think I want to try other faiths. So I went to a bunch of different faiths. I went to Lutheran churches, Methodist churches, even a couple Baptist churches, and some non-denominational churches. None of them really quite felt like church to me. They were fine, they were wonderful, they just weren't really quite what I felt like with church. So after attending no church, actually, for quite a while, I realized that I really enjoyed the spiritual education and discussion and the support of a church and Catholic community, and it felt like the Catholic Church was what I most aligned with. So I tried many churches, but none of the Catholic churches that I tried were really actually very welcoming. I went to several churches for several months, one of them up to almost 6 months, and no one introduced themselves to me, and I never even met the priest. So I just, in fact, there's a church right across the street from me, and I really wanted to like that church, but I just was like, this is not for me. So my mom had actually heard of this church, and she suggested that I try it out. So I didn't at the time, but later on when I finally did, remembering actually from the Pride Parade, your float, I came, and the very first Sunday, I remember AJ met me out in the parking lot and said, well, welcome, come on in, I haven't seen you before. And many people came over and introduced themselves and welcomed me. And when the sign of the peace lasted for several minutes, I thought, wow, this is the supportive, welcoming community I've been looking for. So I have loved it ever since then, and the rest is history.
Mary Magdalene Apostle Catholic Community gets it right. You're the perfect blend of the old and the new, the Jewish and the Christian, the traditional and the radical. You're beautiful, intelligent, and inclusive. And I want to thank you so much for including me at the table here.
Because I strongly believe that the institutional Catholic Church commits gross discrimination against women when it refuses to ordain them. They are half of God's human creation, which God designed that system, but the church discriminates against them. They say that male priests are a long-standing tradition. Well, I think it's time to paraphrase a famous American philosopher, Kenny Rogers. Traditions are like poker hands. You gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them. I think what we're doing is telling Pope Francis that it's long past time to fold this tradition of male-only priests.
The reason why this community is important for me is because it makes me feel close to God. The sense of community we have here and the appreciation for the dignity of women and for the dignity of everyone brings me close to God.
So we came to Mary Magdalene and found a home of energy, hope, and passion. And it reminds me, I reflect on a little conversation between the Sufi and the seeker. And the seeker says to Sufi, Sufi, after all of this enlightenment, are you divine? The Sufi says, no, I'm not divine. Well, Sufi, then are you a saint? No, I'm not a saint. Well, after all of this enlightenment, what have you become? And Sufi says, I became awake. And that rings to me because we in Mary Magdalene experience being awoken. We wake to a lot of things, the energy, the joy, and the passion. And here we experience this radical inclusivity. And in Mary Magdalene we have, I believe, the opportunity to challenge ourselves and challenge each other, to see beyond ourselves, and to touch the world with our gifts that may be very simple. We may not even think that much of them, but it's the loving and the caring that can help someone else feel known and feel loved.
There are three reasons that I came up with why I'm here. The first is philosophical, and then there were two sort of serendipitous ones. Philosophical one. When I was about 50, I decided to return to the church that I was raised in. It was my father's church that I was educated in. And I returned to the Catholic Church, but I realized that the Catholic Church, the institutional Catholic Church, had major structural problems. And you can point to, at least in my mind, one particular reason why. You know, it is insane as far as I'm concerned that not one woman is allowed to take one leadership position at any level. This is a multinational corporation with presence in every country of the world, with more than 1 billion members and probably shortly smaller than 1 billion ex-members or former members. But no woman anywhere can be a leader, and we have seen major structural problems because of that. And not only that, to top it off, any man that wants to have a committed and loving relationship with a woman, he can't have any leadership position either. Really, we've eliminated about, what, 85, 90% of the people in the world? So what do we have? We have leadership that is bereft of talent, okay? We have leadership that has, you know, it is stigmatized by by clericalism and hubris. And we have leadership that, in the words of our Pope, suffers from spiritual Alzheimer's disease. I also realize that if change is going to come, seldom does it come from the top down, it's from the bottom up. So when Janet and Ed Mansfield asked me to join, I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago, I said yes, yes, because I could live the change I dreamed to see. Live the change I dreamed to see. So that's why I came. Why have I stayed? 2 principal reasons that I could never have anticipated until I actually joined. First, I have found within Jane and Nancy spiritual mentors that are far more important in my life than any male priest has ever been. And believe me, I've been to Catholic grammar, Catholic high school, and Catholic college. Their mentorship has meant everything to me in my spiritual journey. And to top it off, they give sermons that state a thesis, you know, develop that thesis from readings from the scripture, and then conclude, you know, that summarizes and inspires. And they do it briefly. Who would have thought quality preaching in a Roman Catholic liturgy? Not me.
Then I am claiming that I am a committed, faithful Roman Catholic woman. My involvement with the tradition in my family runs very deep. We are Dutch Catholics who immigrated here. We baptize children. We send them to Catholic school no matter what it takes. We marry within the church. We bury within the church. So that qualifies me as being really a member of the church on the margins. For me, Mary Magdalene Apostle Catholic Community, when I became a member in 2005, has restored my joy and my integrity. I can get at the heart of Christ's teachings here in every liturgy. This is where I am nurtured in my faith and challenged in my faith, where I can serve with integrity, with my whole heart, and my gifts are welcome.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Vinka Valdivia, and I'm going to tell you why I joined MMACC. Coming to Mary Magdalene was not an easy decision for me. I had long-standing ties in the traditional Catholic Church and a community that I had been with for over 20 years. So when I read the book Good Catholic Girls, I agreed with the explanation it gave about why women who have such a limited role in the hierarchical church chose to stay in it. They might have problems with some of the structural constructs, but their particular community is enriching and rewarding. I felt that way too. But then I read on. It talked about the hypocrisy of priests asking piousness from parishioners when they were having clandestine, illicit, even criminal sexual relationships. And what did the leadership of the church do? It protected them, presenting a false facade and putting children in danger. More egregious was how it pursued learned women who were calling the church to live up to its promises of the Second Vatican Council. Rather than listening, it tried to either silence them or run them out of their leadership or teaching positions. The final straw was when the church called gays and lesbians disordered. I am gay, and I knew that on this point and others, the church was flat out wrong. I could no longer sit in any pew and go on supporting a hypocritical structure with either my money or my presence. I looked for a positive alternative. I turned to MMACC. Being able to be welcomed fully into a community that valued my differences instead of condemning them. Being able to see women at the altar alongside men, an equal representation of God's creation, and getting rid of the patriarchal language were all very gratifying. I felt that people here were welcoming and emanated a certain peacefulness, even before I knew them well. When I first came, I wasn't sure I would stay. But it's been my home now for about 6 years, and I have no plans to leave. My hope is that other people will find this beacon and be drawn to a community with positive, affirming energy, and a call to live out Jesus' teaching in a more authentic, all-inclusive way.
I had a lot of anger at the church over the clergy abuse scandal and cover-up. I was constantly disappointed by the sermons at our church and the lackluster participation of the people in the pews next to me. Yet I kept coming back to this church I was raised in, the church that I loved. I wanted to raise my kids with a strong faith and participate with my husband in a welcoming, vibrant, and socially relevant liturgy. Perhaps the hardest moment for us as an interfaith couple was an announcement when we were at St. Bridget's, specifically stating that communion was only for Catholics in good standing, no blessings allowed, which hurt both of us very deeply. At Mary Magdalene, we have found everything we are looking for. Priests who model the loving service of Jesus and share the spirit of wisdom with us each week. A community who worships with joy and grateful awareness, and where all people are welcomed without judgment or labels, and a place where my kids feel loved and valued just as they are right now.
One reason why I like Mary Magdalene is they have a good place for the kids to go. I like that because at my old church, all of us kids would just sit there and stay off in space, and we wouldn't really have anything to do because we couldn't understand the readings in the Gospels. But here there's just a place for us to go and understand what is going on in here, and for us to enjoy our faith more.
The joke in our household is that my mom is Baptist, my dad is Muslim, my wife is Catholic, and I'm totally confused. So, needless to say, growing up, religion was a non-starter. And once we moved to the United States, there was a lot of going to different spiritual events, communities, services. Luckily in college, I found a Buddhist meditation community. And after I actually was able to spend some time in Asia, I came back and we had a wonderful interfaith community in our college, Jen through her Newman community and me through my meditation. And that is actually where we got married, in our college chapel with a Catholic priest and a Buddhist monk. As Jen mentioned, once you leave the confines of that protective environment, it was less than idyllic in the real world. And so when Jen said she was coming here, the most I hoped for would be a place where she would have a slight bit of spiritual nourishment. And I was incredibly surprised when she came home, elated the first time. And I would say every time that I've come here, I've just grown more and more in love with MMACC. And that is truly because I have found a community where they truly live by the Word, in addition to homilies that are just so soul-searching and thought-provoking. And when I say inspired by the Word, I could look at it from the Scriptures, where it could be the word of love, and to put all virtue, to put all other virtues into the work of love, or it could be, if I'm looking at a sutra, where it's talking about boundless love, looking at all directions of love, and looking for unlimited love. No matter what way I look at it, this spiritual community fulfills us. And so, when the question comes up of what is my religion, I still don't know quite how to answer that. But what I do know is that I'm so pleased that my family has found such a nourishing spiritual community here. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to quote one of my favorite singers, Bono, from the band U2. He once described Irish immigration to America like this: the Irish have been coming to America for years, starting with the Great Famine, when the Irish were on the run from starvation and from a British government that couldn't care less. When Allie and I first stepped into Mary Magdalene back in 2009, we were also on the run from starvation and from a Catholic church that couldn't care less. I'm not speaking about the entire Catholic Church, just our small neighborhood parish. A young, very devoted, very intelligent ex-lawyer was named pastor of our church and quickly began making changes that left us feeling very uncomfortable. When we tried to speak to him to discuss it, the message we received was very legalistic and rigid, and ultimately we felt like we better get on board with his theology or he would be happy to show us the door. So we were hungry for a better way, and a friend of Allie's mentioned that her friend Rod was a part-time priest in a small church in San Diego called Mary Magdalene. Allie checked the website and told me, I found a church that I want us to check out. They have 1 gay male priest and 2 female priests. That definitely got my attention. Obviously, I was curious and I wanted to hear more. Then she told me, and in the picture on the website, they're all smiling. That's when I knew we had to come and check it out. So from the moment we walked in, we were welcomed by everyone and we felt home immediately. And when Nancy on that first day said, and here at Mary Magdalene, we believe that this is God's table and all are welcome, we knew that we had found a church that would feed us and that we would starve no more.
At Mary Magdalene Apostle Community, there is an awareness that change is the work of the Spirit and is inevitable in all organic life, and that the change that we all long for is being lived out within the confines of this community.